What we're looking at here is the HMS Prince of Wales, the largest warship that Britain's Royal Navy has ever built. A floating airfield, she's equipped with powerful anti-air guns and a wing of 5th-generation fighters to project power wherever she goes. We went aboard just before she deployed to the Indo-Pacific, leading a carrier strike group of other warships right into China's backyard. We're going to break down how the carrier works, get up close with her weapons, and speak to her crew to find out why that's such a big deal. This is the HMS Prince of Wales, one of 2 Queen Elizabeth-class carriers that are now in service with the Royal Navy. It cost an estimated £3.5 billion, took 7 years to build, and is the current flagship of the entire fleet. She is enormous, with a flight deck that's 230 foot wide and 920 foot long, roughly the same as 3 Premier League football pitches laid end to end. The deck is covered in little hollows. These are fixing points so that anything on deck can be strapped down to stop it rolling around or potentially falling off in rough seas. Even though the flight deck is massive, it's still much shorter than a normal airport runway, so the jets need a little help to get airborne. That's why there's a ramp at the front. How the aircraft land is another matter, which we'll get to in a moment. On deck are 2 large towers, known as islands. The one at the front contains the bridge from where the ship itself is piloted and overseen by its senior crew. Rather like the bridge of the Enterprise on Star Trek, there's banks of computers giving readouts to the crew of the ship's condition, position, and other key information. There's a steering wheel from where the officer of the watch steers the ship, and the captain's chair from where the senior-most officer issues their orders. Also contained within this first island are engine exhaust vents and an array of powerful scanners and radars that the ship uses to identify both friend and foe. The second island is aircraft control, essentially the same as you would find on any major airport except on the deck of a ship. It is from here that the carrier's air wing is launched and tracked while in the air using more powerful radar. There's also more exhaust vents. At 184 foot tall, which is slightly taller than the Statue of Liberty, the Prince of Wales has 9 decks below the flight deck that house up to 1,600 crew. Hidden within her hull is everything they need to survive a long voyage at sea and then some. There's storage for 45 days worth of food, kitchens with room for 40 chefs, 4 dining rooms, a water treatment plant, hospital, police station and holding cells, a gym, a games room and the wardroom, essentially an onboard pub. Then there's the engines, 4 diesel generators and 2 Rolls-Royce gas turbines that together output enough power to light up a small city. Some aircraft carriers, such as America's Nimitz class, are nuclear powered, meaning instead of gas or diesel engines, they have nuclear reactors. This makes them harder to detect because the engines run much quieter, means they don't have to carry so much fuel and can stay at sea longer without refueling. However, it also limits the number of ports they can stop at because not every country accepts them. They're more expensive to build and maintain, require a larger and more highly trained crew, and when they do need to refuel, they're out of action for a long time. For Britain, which wants 1 carrier operational at all times, but only has 2 to rotate between, that would be a huge problem. So they opted for conventional fuel instead. Also down here are the crew quarters and the aircraft hangar, a huge hollow space in the center of the vessel where the jets and helicopters are stored. Finally, there's 2 huge elevators built into the side of the vessel. When upright, these form a part of the flight deck, but they can also be lowered down to hangar level. This is how the aircraft get from the hangar to the main deck. They're also very useful for getting all the supplies the Prince of Wales needs on board. If we go back to the tapes, then we can see all of that in action. This is the aircraft hangar. Because the ship is getting ready to put to sea, it's full of supplies rather than aircraft. They will fly onto the ship once it is at sea, taking off from airfields around the UK and then touching down on deck, which is safer than loading them using winches or cranes. And here's what the vessel looks like below deck. It's a maze of narrow passages and steep stairs which take the crew weeks to learn the layout of. Here's the main flight deck. At first glance, it may look like I'm on the top of a multi-story car park. In fact, this whole thing is a huge flight deck. The flight deck of HMS Prince of Wales, the largest ship the Royal Navy has ever floated, its current flagship, and it's preparing for its maiden deployment to the Indo-Pacific. You can see the sheer scale of the thing, along with all of the little fixing points on the deck. Here's those two islands, the bridge at the front and then the air control tower at the back. On the bridge, you can see the banks of computer screens we talked about earlier. Here's the steering wheel, which is surprisingly small for a vessel this size. It's driven by hydraulics, though if those fail, there is a much bigger one below deck to be used as a backup. We spoke to the officer of the watch, who's responsible for steering the vessel, to find out what that's like.
I'm Lieutenant Wedgwood. I'm Officer Watch 5 on Prince of Wales, so part of the Warfare Department. First joined in 2019, so as an AB, so I was a rating beforehand, before commissioning in 2022 to join as a Warfare Officer, so still in the Warfare branch, but just went for a commission. And then subsequently rejoined as a first job Officer Watch on here, but I've been in and around the ship for probably about 3.5, 4 years now. So she can carry a lot of aircraft, really big variety of aircraft, which is a bit different to any other ships I've served on. So I've only served on 45, which are obviously destroyers, and HMS Spey, which is a foreign deployed OPV. So really different in that environment, so much more aviation, a lot more like moving parts to move around. But as a ship as a whole, really solid ship to like drive, really enjoyable to drive, a bit different characteristics obviously. I think we have a turning circle of nearly 1.5 miles, so you know, in that respect a bit different, but yeah, good ship, overall good ship.
Yeah, what's it like to drive an aircraft carrier?
It feels good. I'm 26 now, so it feels quite cool to drive an aircraft carrier, I suppose. I mean, we have a lot of. I failed my driving test actually 4 times for a car, so I did pretty well on the course. The course we do is pretty stringent at Collingwood to pass, so it's a good week-long course of you basically do a driving test every day. So pass that, and yeah, she's really good to drive. Really easy to drive, to be honest with you, and you've got such a good team that it's pretty simple to do, really.
Officer of the watch, that means that at certain times you're in charge of the whole vessel. What's it like being responsible for everyone on board?
Yeah, it's a big deal. I suppose it's a big deal because as my job has charge of the ship, so I'm in charge of all the safety and obviously the navigation of the ship during that 4-hour watch that we do. So on that front, it is quite a lot of responsibility, but I think I think you wouldn't join otherwise if you relish in a bit of responsibility in that. So it feels good to do. I think it's important.
How many people are you in charge of?
So when we deploy, so the ship's company is only around, it swells between 500 and 600 for a ship's company, but obviously when we deploy, it swells to much greater than that, obviously because we have inbox, air wing, all the stuff that comes with there, followed by engineering, catering, everything else. So it can be up to about 2,000 to 1,800 people. So it's quite a lot of responsibility, I suppose, if you look at it that way.
You're just about to deploy to the Indo-Pacific. What's the part of the voyage that you think you're going to need to pay kind of most attention to, where you're going to need to be most switched on, and what part are you looking forward to the most?
Personally, for me, what I'm looking forward to the most is probably right over in the Far East, so like Japan, that sort of area. I think that'll be really interesting, but I've never really done that part of the world before, so it'd be really interesting, especially to go with work for such a length of time. I think points to consider, like, really have to be switched on, is probably really the narrow points. Obviously, we're a big ship, and going through narrow points like the Gibraltar Strait and places like that, obviously you have to take more care, especially around the Mediterranean as well. So I think around them points, we all have to be more switched on because we're in close proximity to the land, especially as a warfare officer. That just makes my job that little bit more complex. So, yeah.
The Prince of Wales has little in the way of armaments for such a large warship, but what it does have are 3 phalanx anti-air guns. These are called Closein weapon systems and are designed to do exactly what the name suggests: destroy anything that gets too close to the ship. Concealed inside this strange-looking dome at the top are 2 powerful radar which can detect anything that might be a threat to the ship. Using the radar and these cameras mounted on the side of the dome, the phalanx can automatically track and evaluate targets to see if they're hostile. The base of the phalanx can rotate, sweeping left and right to follow moving targets, and it can also tilt up and down to track targets high overhead or close to the waterline. If something is deemed to be a threat to the ship, then the 6-barreled Vulcan chain gun mounted just underneath the radar is what takes it down. This gun fires 20mm armor-piercing rounds which are fed into it from this huge barrel underneath. It can unleash up to 4,500 of these rounds per minute, though it can only actually carry enough ammunition for 20 seconds of continuous firing before it runs out. Typically, a burst of 300 rounds is enough to take down a moving target, which this gun could spit out in just 4 seconds. It tracks its own bullets in the air, then makes minute adjustments to make sure they hit their target. Most often, the order to fire is given by an operator who's sitting away from the gun but watching what it can see through a television screen. However, the gun can also be set to automatically engage anything it deems to be a threat. While the phalanx was designed to take down anti-ship missiles, it's accurate enough to take down drones, artillery shells, and even tiny mortar rounds. We were lucky enough to speak with a phalanx operator who told us what the gun's like to work with.
I'm LET Hillier, so I'm a weapons engineer in the Royal Navy. Predominantly work on the phalanx systems we have. On board HMS Prince of Wales, you probably know we have 3.
I'm given to believe that all of the guns are named after the maintainer's mums. Does that mean your mum's Sarah?
No, so this one's after the guy who's fitted this gun. This is his girlfriend, Sarah.
Ah,
and then, so we have a petty officer who is named, his wife's named after the starboard gun, which is Charlotte. And then the port forward gun was named after Deborah Jones, which is my mother. So yeah, so it's quite fortunate.
Bit of a Navy tradition, I'm told.
It is, yeah. It took you by a shock, though. Yeah, multi-million-pound weapon named after you. So yeah, great day.
Very nice, very nice. Can you tell me about how it works and what it's designed to do?
So it's a 6-barrel automatic gun. Depends what mode we work it in. It depends on what scenario we're based with. So we can use it in anti-air mode, so anti-aircraft, and then we can also use it in surface mode, and that's why we got fitted with the cameras. It can track various targets at a single one time, but I think the best part about phalanx is probably you can set the gun to auto, where it uses its search antenna, its track antenna, then to track targets, and then it can engage and shoot targets down without any human contact, other than us loading the weapons and all that, just to get the guns in a fixed working state.
Can you tell us about what caliber it fires, rate of fire?
Yes, we got 20mm rounds. The gun can shoot 90 rounds per second. So yeah, if you're going to be flying over phalanx, you're probably not going to be flying for very long. Yes, we've got a motto in the Royal Navy. Most phalanx maintainers know it, and if they don't know it, they're probably not a phalanx maintainer. And I know a lot of them have it tattooed, and it's called "If it flies, it dies." Because if it's in the sky and it's coming towards us, we're probably not going to like it, so we'll take it down. We normally go out with a strike group. It's there as we've got the F-35s on the flight deck. If we've got something suspicious coming towards us, we'll send one of them up. And then if it's managed to get through, it's not getting any closer because we'll take it down before it even gets close enough to us. One of our daily checks on the gun is to make sure that the training and the elevation angles of the gun is functioning and working. So we have a PSOT or a SOT, which is a daily test, and it's called SOT 6. So it means that right now, what we used to do with the Queen Elizabeth the other side of us, we used to be able to do a SOT 6 and the guns would come up and wave at each other. So then their maintainers used to wave back at us with their gun.
Very nice, just to check and make sure they're all working fine.
Yeah, but it's also just a bit of humour for us.
Yeah, of course, of course. But phalanx is only the last line of the aircraft carrier's defence. A ship this large will never put to sea alone. Instead, it will form the central part of what's known as a carrier strike group. This is a complementary mix of ships and submarines which will protect each other at sea and form a formidable fighting force. In the case of the Prince of Wales, she will be accompanied on her voyage by HMS Dauntless, a Type 45 destroyer which is bristling with anti-air and anti-ship missiles. These are designed to protect the Prince of Wales against anything that might attack her, either on the waves or above them. There's also HMS Richmond, a Type 23 frigate, which is like a smaller version of the destroyer, also equipped with anti-air and anti-ship missiles, but also anti-submarine torpedoes. Along the way, she'll be joined by another Spanish frigate and 2 Norwegian warships. Under the waves will be an Astute-class submarine, a nuclear-powered but not nuclear-armed attack sub. This is incredibly stealthy and is armed with torpedoes to take down other warships and Tomahawk cruise missiles to attack both seaborne and land targets. Then there's at least one auxiliary vessel, such as RFA Tide Spring. This carries fuel and fresh water for the carrier, which can be pumped into it while at sea using long hoses. It also carries fuel for the aircraft, which can either be pumped across to the carrier, or it has its own hangar and flight deck from where they can be refueled. But really, the carrier's main protection, its means of attack, and its party trick is its air wing. In the case of the Prince of Wales, this is up to 70 F-35B 5th generation fighter jets, though on its mission to the Indo-Pacific, it will carry less than half that number. The F-35 is a state-of-the-art, supersonic, stealth fighter bomber that is, at least in theory, almost impossible for enemy aircraft and air defences to detect. It has a chain gun and 4 air-to-air missiles for taking down other jets, and can be equipped with up to 6 ground attack bombs, 3 under each wing. Each of these aircraft costs north of $100 million and has a combat range of more than 700 miles, allowing it to range far beyond the ship and carry out attack missions. The B variant, which is what the British carriers use, is a STOVL aircraft, which stands for short takeoff and vertical landing. If we go back to the tapes, I'll explain what that means.
The Prince of Wales is designed to work with the F-35B variant. That is a STOVL aircraft, which stands for short takeoff, vertical landing. What that means, in essence, is that there are no cables or launchers like you might find on some of the bigger American carriers, which thrust the aircraft off the end. What the F-35Bs have is a ramp, which is what I'm walking up at the moment. So in combat, they will come steaming down the flight deck, up this ramp, off the end, and into combat. When it comes to landing, what they'll do is hover over the aircraft carrier, turn their jet vertically, and land straight downwards, just like a helicopter or an old Sea Harrier would have done. This is the view from the top, and as you can see, we're pretty far off the ground. It's a great view.
So, on its own, the aircraft carrier is little more than a floating runway with a bit of air defence in the form of the phalanx. But put it together with its carrier strike group and its air wing, and it becomes a potent tool that can be used to project power across the globe. In the case of the Prince of Wales, that's exactly what its latest mission is intended to do. After a brief stop in the Mediterranean, it will sail towards the Suez Canal and into the Red Sea before passing through the Bab el-Mandab Strait, a narrow passage of water where the Houthis have been attacking both cargo ships and the Western warships sent to protect them. While the carrier isn't planning to engage the Houthis, the crew have been trained to do so, and if fired upon, they'll be ready to hit back, a warning to all terror groups that their attacks will not go unanswered. After a visit to Australia, a key partner in the region, the Prince of Wales will then sail past China, where it's sure to be shadowed by Beijing's fleet. Its final destination is Japan, which will take it close to Taiwan, the autonomous island which China claims as its own and may be preparing to invade. The Royal Navy has not said whether the Prince of Wales will sail through the Taiwan Strait. Her sister ship, the Queen Elizabeth, avoided those waters on her own voyage to this region back in 2021, though did dispatch one of her strike group to make the voyage. We spoke to an officer aboard the Prince of Wales ahead of the deployment about the role a carrier plays internationally.
I am a warfare officer, and on board here I'm the gunnery officer. We'll be sailing as part of a multinational force going on up high mast. What the carrier delivers is F-35 primarily, and I would say, as much as it pains me as a warfare officer to say it, it is our primary weapon system. So we call that strike, and so conduct strike operations wherever HM government decides that we need to do that. That's what that carrier can deliver, or this carrier can deliver, anywhere in the world. It's the most advanced aircraft that we've ever had, and arguably in the world. So we'll be taking 18 with us. That'll increase to 24, and we'll be able to take that capability wherever we need to go to. In essence, that we are a giant airfield that can operate helicopters and jets both at the same time.
The carrier obviously won't be going alone. What can you tell us about the vessels it's going with and kind of how a carrier strike group works?
So we'll be sailing with RN vessels, so HMS Dauntless and HMS Richmond. We're also acting as part of a wider NATO group comprising of nations such as the Spanish, Norwegians, Canadians, but we'll also be teaming up with other regional partners in the Indo-Pacific, the Australians, the Japanese as well. So trying to really build those international links as we proceed around on Operation High Mast.
What's it like, because a carrier strike group's quite a complicated interlinked set of capabilities, what's it like doing that, first of all with friendly forces, but then also integrating forces from other countries?
So thankfully, as part of NATO, we're able to operate on a fairly common ground with the same type doctrine. So integration isn't as difficult as you think it could be, although there are certain language barriers that we have to get across as well. But that's the whole point of our exercises in the Mediterranean with those international partners, building those links and improving our training tactics and procedures as we go around.
You're going to be away for the best part of 8-9 months, I think. Have you been on a deployment that long before? And what's it like, if you have, what's it like being on a ship for that length of time?
I spent 7 months out in the Gulf on a mine hunter, and then various other deployments as well. It can be challenging. I think the hardest part is leaving the family, who are also effectively deployed as well, having to deal with all the pressures of being at home and having a partner or a family member away. I would say that's the hardest part, but the Navy's very good at supporting the family members whilst we're deployed, and there's whole deployment packages that they provide as well. And with modern day communications, emails, telephone, Wi-Fi, it's easier, but it's still hard. As a warfare officer, I'm looking forward to the international exercises, using the weapon systems, demonstrating strike to those partners, but also the port stops as well. And I'd say Japan is got to be the highlight.
And what can you tell us about what it's like to be on a carrier when you've got aircraft ripping past, going through the skies above you, you've got warships sailing either side of you? It must be quite an experience.
It is. It's something that I've never experienced myself, so I'm really excited to see what that actually looks like with a task group around you, operating in close proximity with fighter jets taking off. You can always hear the roar of the engines as they take off. Again, in warfare, that is what you sign up for, and I'm so excited to see what that's like.
That's where this tape stops, but we'll be back soon to play you through another episode of War on Tape.